Hello, welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. If you do like the programming you see here and the musicians and artists I visit with, please be sure and hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel. Jeremy Harmer is an English singer, multi-instrumentalist, and an English language teacher. He began early on singing and playing in school and university. In 1969, Jeremy recorded and released a rare private UK album, Idiosyncratics and Swallows Wings, an introspective and slightly melancholic folk album. Only 99 copies were originally pressed. In 1974, Mr. Harmer recorded the 1974 album, English Tea, which also doubled as an English teaching tool for Spanish speakers. Besides having a long career as an English language teacher, Jeremy has not forsaken his musical muse and aptitude. In 2020, he recorded a concert with the AdHoc Strings. The album Windhover was recorded during lockdown and released in 2021. Jeremy's latest CD is We Carry On, released in 2024, and includes musicians from Folkhouse, a folk music collective. And my guest has also performed in spoken word shows, with Touchable Dreams being the most popular. Well, welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for inviting me.
You're very, very welcome. Well, take us back to the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born, I was born in a place called Hartley Witney in the south of England, but when I was 3 months old, we moved to a house just outside Stratford-on-Avon, which is known principally for the fact that it was the birthplace of William Shakespeare. And so there's a big theatre. So I think of Stratford-on-Avon as my home.
Okay, okay. Do you recall your childhood growing up? Was there music in the household?
Yes, I mean, my father was a passionate music lover. My mother, my maternal grandmother could have been um, a, a concert pianist. She certainly did. She did a recital or two at one of the premier chamber music places in London, and she had a reputation when uh, um, she and her husband were in India during the British colonial times, for sort of being a perfect sight reader, and all the young troops would come round and sing songs at her piano. Um, and my other grandmother, funnily enough, trained to be a singer, um, and was indeed even, we know that Richard Strauss, the famous German conductor, had a nickname for her. So they both these grandmothers, one of whom died when I was very young, the other, the pianist, I knew much more because she died when I was a late teenager. But both of them, of course, could have been musicians, although in a very different genre. Um, but but of course, then they got married, and
Right.
that was the end of that.
Right. And then life happens, right? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, a lot of the, especially females, they had that aptitude and affinity, but they had families, like you said, and that came first.
yeah. It's
Uh,
not just that.
yeah.
It was literally an
Mhm.
attitude, an attitude in there's certain stratas of society which seem to say, it's not right. Once you're
Right.
married,
Right.
you go
Exactly.
be married.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
but no,
Exactly.
I don't know. I never talked to either of them about it. But that was very much classical music for both of them.
Okay. Okay. Well, was the guitar the first instrument you learned to play?
No, I went to I was sent away to boarding school. Not my choice, by the way. Uh, uh, when I was about 7.5, 8, and I learned piano there, and sang in choirs. Sang in the school choir, uh, and I sang in choirs for about 10 years of my life. But when I was about 10, I was in love with the music teacher. Her name was Miss Bishop, um, When I say in love, that's ridiculous. I hadn't even reached puberty. I was
Right.
in. I was in. What's the word I want? Sort of puppy
Puppy
dog
love,
love. Yeah, that
puppy
kind of
love.
thing.
Yeah, yes.
And I can to this day. I mean, I'd be most surprised if she was still alive. To this day, I can remember her voice and what she looked like, and she used to, when she was conducting the choir, she'd say, "Vivace, boys, vivace," to try to get us to. Anyway, the point of her is that she had a cheap Hohner guitar, a Spanish guitar, and she was teaching herself how to play the guitar. So, obviously, given my absolute devotion to this woman,
Yes.
I wanted a guitar.
Yes.
And indeed, and I pestered my parents, and they said, no, no, no. But they're um, under the Christmas tree by the time of my 11th, by the time I was 11, there was a guitar. And it's the best present I've ever received, because the guitar itself was a sort of cheap and nasty one, but that was it. I was hooked, and I started playing, sort of chords. I sort of I probably learned things like Lonnie Donegan's stuff. My old man's a dustman. No. Is that right? Yes, and the Battle of New Orleans. Way down, and that kind of stuff, playing plonk plonk. But it just suited me to hell. I loved it, and I kept playing, and then I got a slightly better guitar, and then kept playing, and then I went to my next school. And at my next school, I gave up the piano because I met a a very unhelpful teacher who kind of turned me off, which was really upsetting in retrospect. So it could have been perfectly reasonable. And I played the trumpet a bit, not particularly well, but I played in those kind of cadet bands and things like that.
Okay.
But my parents had friends who lived in the same county, about a quarter of an hour's drive away, and their son was a budding musician. He was a passionate musician as well, and he did become very famous, and is still very. Even though he committed suicide in 1974. Well, I think he committed suicide. He certainly died of an overdose of temazepam or something like that. And his mother always said it was an accident. His sister to this day says she hopes to God it was suicide, because otherwise it was a waste, sort of thing.
You're speaking of Nick Drake.
I am speaking of Nick Drake, who was a friend, a good friend, and we started playing together. And indeed, I started to learn some of the first. I think like everybody of that age, we all learned how to play Blues Are on the Game. One of the most iconic songs of that period ever. And one year we went skiing in Switzerland, and me and my mum and dad, and my big sister didn't come with us for some reason, but Nick did, and so we would entertain people in the hotel bar, playing our guitars. And we found recently a letter from Nick's dad. I used to go over there a lot. From Nick's dad to his daughter, when they came to collect Nick after the skiing holiday, and it said something like. Nick and the boy Jeremy played some songs for us, and they were really very good, and they sung in harmony, and they sang, and he mentioned one or two songs, and Beatles songs and that kind of thing, and then off I went to university, but I was still sort of playing.
Well, what kind of he seemed like to me, of course, I got into Nick Drake decades later, I think with most people. But he seemed like kind of a shy kind of a guy? Was he pretty much?
He was tall, beautiful. I mean, he was beautiful, um, but strange. He was slightly ethereal in some ways, absolutely driven musically. Um, his parents were uh, sort of elegant upper middle class parents. Um, Hello, Jeremy. Come in, and I described them in a piece I wrote as having a kind of bone china elegance. Kind of uh, they had brought back from what was then Burma, Myanmar. They had brought back uh, this lovely lady called Noor, who worked for them for the rest of her life, and um, they lived this very sort of precious upper middle class life. And they gave Nick they had a beautiful uh, sitting room with a huge, I don't know if it's a Bechstein or a Steinway piano. And as you may know, uh, Molly, that's uh, Nick's mother, very elegant, very beautiful, but kind of porcelain beautiful. Uh, but his biographer discovered letters I'd written to them after Nick's death, remembering, which I'd almost forgotten, her sitting at the piano singing some of her songs. And have you now heard her songs?
No, I don't believe I have.
They are absolutely stunningly beautiful. Her own lyrics, her own poetry, and the moment you hear, and a little bit Noel Coward, sort of
Oh,
that
okay.
period.
Okay.
But the the lyrics have a sort of bittersweet. Uh, there's something there. There's some melancholy there, which is extraordinary. And the moment you hear her songs, you kind of click to something about Nick. Uh, um, and his music is quite extraordinary. It's been with me all
Yeah.
my life.
Yes.
Um, I lost touch. So he went off. I went to East Anglia University here in the east of England. And Nick was a year younger than me, I think. Um, but I wasn't terribly bright. And he went. Of course, he went to Cambridge because he wasn't that bright, but he managed to get in. But you must have read the stories. And of course, what he did there was he just gradually stopped studying. He just sat in his room, uh, um, playing the guitar. And the only time I saw him, while he was still at Cambridge before he dropped out, uh, I, I I called in on him, and he was in a sort of bed set in Chesterton Road. It's there every time I pass it, opposite the river there. And we sat there, and he was so cool, man. He was cool. He had this
Yeah.
long hair, beautiful. He had this long black coat on, and just the and impossibly cooler than I was or will ever be. And I was there with a girlfriend I had at the time, and we smoked some dope. And then I think he put on the first really big cans I've ever put on. And so by this time we were a bit stoned, and he said, "Here, listen to this." And he put on a Steve Miller track called "Song for
Oh,
Our Ancestors,"
oh,
which
is that right?
I don't know if you know it, but it starts with a ship's hooter, which just goes boom like this. Now we go, "Wah!"
Yeah.
so. But then I didn't see him very much. But then and after university, I didn't know what to do. So I'll try and stop in a minute. But you've
Sure,
started me on the biography, and
sure, sure.
but I got to university. Still doing this, and then I joined the University Folk Club, which is where um, my guitar playing started to improve, and and um, and then we had sort of people who'd come visit and play at the University Folk Club, and I remember people like there was a uh, uh, what she called Joe the Fish and Brenda Wooten or something, these Cornish folk singers who were just magic. And then we had people like Bert Jansch would come along, and you'd find yourself sitting about 6 feet away,
Yeah, yeah,
just going, how the... I'd never heard guitar playing like that or seen it.
yeah, yeah.
You know, and that changed me forever. And Sandy Denny was there once, but and we also had, by the way, we had. I sort of pretended I played the double bass at the time. I didn't. I do now. And we had a series called Jazz Coast at College, and so we had people like Thelonious Monk came along,
Oh,
and Dave Brubeck Quartet came along, and they. I just remember sitting there, Joe Morello's drums in absolute awe. Anyway, but that so then I became a
oh,
proper
right. When you mentioned
and did a few gigs and stuff.
you mentioned Bert Jansch, I also think of Davy Graham too. You know, his finger picking style. That yeah,
I never met him. The only the only the only time that he crossed my path, as it were, except he didn't, was a few years later. I was living in Southampton, and it was a summer day, and we'd left the Southampton in the south of England, and we'd left the window open. And when we got back, someone had got in through the window and stolen a whole lot of stuff. And so I went to the police, and they said, "Well, we'll have to take your fingerprints for elimination, or what, you know." And so I said, he said, "Left hand, please," and I did that. And he said, "You haven't got any fingerprints," because obviously the tips of my fingers are, you know, like all guitarists, are sort of, you know.
worn down. Yeah.
He said, we had a guy here the other day. He had just the same. Apparently, he's quite well known. A guy called Davy Graham. No, I never met Davy Graham. I saw, but I did talk quite a lot to Bert Jansch when he came along,
Yeah.
and I liked him. I thought he's rather kind of doer and you know. But I thought he was an attractive sort of. He had cool as well,
Yeah.
and funnily enough, my daughter got me tickets for a solo concert of his just before he died. By which stage he's a much older man and rather large, and but still magic. I also went to the last concert John Martin ever did,
Oh,
and that was the most depressing thing I have ever been to.
is that right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because by that stage he was bloated. He only had one leg because he'd lost. He was in. You couldn't understand a word he said. They put a sort of Les Paul on his big tummy and he looked like he was playing a little banjo or something. But then, I mean, it was painful. I nearly walked out. It was like watching. But then someone handed him his acoustic Gibson, and this miracle happened, and he suddenly went, you know.
Just
Anyway,
yeah. Just
so
played it.
that was university. That got me going,
Yeah.
um, and then shall I just keep going for a bit?
Well, yeah. I was going to say you also met David Costa in school too.
Ah, yes. Well, yes, that was of course university. The big thing about university was, in the context of our conversation, was that I was doing an awful lot and writing my own songs and you know I was in shows and things like that, and I wrote the music for some sort of musicals and things like that, and but I also wrote my own songs, and then there was a guy who in the fine arts department who arranged them for me and various other instruments, and there's a choir of girls and stuff like that. It was rather fun. We were, you know, and I was using some tunings, some rather strange tunings, one of which I can't quite recover. There's a song anyway, and we did a concert, and we even did a few tracks on the local TV station or something, and which was Anglia TV they were called. That was the regional TV, and the engineer there, and somehow or other, the TV engineer there said, well, he said, I'm not supposed to do this, but if you come along about 11 o'clock at night, I can let you in and we'll record an album. Uh, we'll record your songs. Uh, and that's what we did. Um, and one take, because we were in a hurry, one take each. Um, there's a lot, a huge lot wrong with uh, the sort of tech spec of that thing, because he wasn't using proper acoustic mics, and there was, it was a great big open TV studio, with, I mean, you probably saw the pictures. There's sort of lights, great big light gantries and lights hanging down and stuff like that. Um, and the band students, right now, on the way to that, I'd met this. Why is everyone so much cooler than me? It really worries me. I met this guy who was so impossibly cool. It wasn't true. Unbelievably good looking, and it had a beautiful kind of moustache and a little sort of beard, and he looked very much like Peter or Paul. I don't know which one is which of those days. His father was a well-known radio disc jockey here in the UK called Sam Costa, and his name was David Costa, and we got on fine. And his guitar playing was just very different from me. Very elegant guitar player, very long nails, uh, much more adventurous player than me. Anyway, he kind of joined in with me, and then suddenly we had, it really, it sounded amazing. I thought he sounded amazing. And there's one track on that LP called, it's a Norfolk folk song called "The Captain's Apprentice."
Oh, okay. That was one
Um,
of my picks. Yeah, that was
and
one.
his guitar playing on that, he plays the sort of second guitar on that. It's just
Yeah,
beautiful. It's just original, interesting, lovely. And of course, he always says that it was because of that he thought, I'm really gonna do this, and he went on to found this group Trees. um,
trees.
uh,
Yeah,
and um, and he's often sort of credited me as being the person who got him going.
yeah.
And the story he tells is of me walking into uh, his room, whatever you call it, his room in the student house, and saying, "Here, you got to listen to this." And I played him my rudimentary version of Leonard Cohen's Suzanne, I think it was. Uh,
Oh, what a song! What a song!
so uh, yeah, so that was that, and then I lost track of David completely. I mean, I bought the Garden of Jane Trelawney and stuff.
Yes, I was
That
going to
was
mention that. Yeah,
that was
what
the
is
end. Which that's so, it's and isn't it so of it? And I miss, but I completely lost track of him. And then he got in touch with me because he'd been doing interviews. He'd mentioned me, and then people got in touch with me, and that took them back to my LP. And so that's and I hadn't seen him for years. And then 67 years later, on the way to Cornwall, where I go in the summer for holidays, right down in the southwest of England, um, he lives on the way there. And I called in, and I was really quite sort of a bit emotional. And he's absolutely extraordinary. He's a rather elderly, exact version of himself, still thin, still rather lovely. I'm an old man, lovely, and uh, so
oh,
yeah. So
yeah,
that was that.
that would be something to talk to him or one of the surviving members from Trees.
I
Yeah.
think. I mean, I'll certainly give you his contact if you're interested.
Oh, very much so. Yes, yes.
And I'll get in touch and say, you know,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that was that. And then I left university.
Okay. Well, I wanted to mention on the album Idiosyncratics and Swallows Wings. First, where did you come up with the title?
I it's the kind of stuff we were all. It was before I. Funnily enough, it was before I did it. I'd smoked any dope or whatever. But it was sort of in the air. It was stuff was happening. But yeah, actually, Incredible String Band was sort of around,
Oh,
and
yes,
I don't
yes.
know whether I've got my timings right. They might. I don't know whether their first album came out after I. But it was that kind of thing, and we were in that. You're in that kind of studenty uh, uh, zone, and do you know, I've tried to work out why on earth I call it that. It sounds so pretentious, and um, uh, but idiosyncratic was a kind of word that I just learned. I think it was the kind of, it was kind of being intelligent word and that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And swallows wings. There's a line in one of the songs which goes aching swallows wings, and and so I was a bit obsessed with swallows or something. It was that kind of feeling. That's right.
Okay. Well, I want to mention my picks, favorite songs, and if you could give me any kind of backstory or inspiration behind the song or reflections, recollections at all, anything. Josephine, yeah, is a really nice one.
Oh, that was yes. Do you know? I listened to it the other day, and that one stood out for me. I
Yeah,
thought that's not such a bad song. I wonder whether it's worth sort of resurrecting. Can't resurrect anything
I
at the
would
moment.
say right now.
Damn fingers. Uh, I mean, there was. It was definitely about someone called Joe, um, and I might have tried to chat her up or something. I can't remember. And I mean, I have absolutely no recollection of the story, except it's funny enough. Now you ask me, I have the memory of some kind of sadness she might have had. Um, that could well be
Yeah.
that could well have been her way of telling me to f off. I don't know.
Okay.
But in your kind of in desperate sort of romantic yearnings, uh, not for her necessarily, but for stuff and life and things.
Yeah.
So I sort of created this fiction of Josephine the Walker, and how can I tell her something, and and all this kind of stuff. Um, she's actually on the LP playing the cello. She Her name was Joe Gamgee, I think.
Oh.
No, I mean it's such a long time ago. I've no real.
Yeah.
Um,
Cello is one of my favorite instruments too.
yeah,
Yeah, I
right.
love the cello. Yeah.
I've done quite a few gigs uh, recently with cellists, because the guitar and cello just kind of click.
Yes.
Yeah, that was that one. Josephine the Walker has travelled for too long.
Uh,
Uh,
I had an aunt Josephine. Well, she went by Joe as
yeah.
well, but she passed away a few years ago. Yeah.
Mm.
So a sad song. Now I like melancholy songs. So when I saw this one, I said, I know I'm going to like this one, and sure enough, yes, I do.
Da, 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 da. There's a line in that though that always makes me blush with embarrassment. There's one about I'm just a man who is wanting to live. Is it? I think I'm just a man who is wanting to. But yeah, I quite like. It's a very simple chord structure. If anyone had got hold of me critically, they would have told me to speed up.
Okay.
The only problem with that song is it's literally, just a man
Yeah. Yes.
but hey,
That's what I like about it. I like the tempo. I like the slower tempo on that, you know. I mean, I guess people that are saying, well, if you wanted it to be more commercially acceptable, maybe speed it up. But I like that. I like that. It ministers to me, those type of songs. Home of Years is another one I like.
yeah, the word leaves around the heart. Yeah, no, gosh, it's really good fun thinking about these songs. Um,
Yeah.
I did, do you know, the other day, because I don't listen to it very often, obviously, but the other day I did sort of have a think about Josephine. As I said, whether to sort of bring it back into, and it's got a rather nice chord shift in the middle of it, hasn't it?
Yes, it does.
Uh, and that was right. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. But Home of Years is another one that I like. And then you mentioned previously A Captain's Apprentice. Now that one to me sounds like one of those traditional folk songs.
It most
Espe-
certainly is.
Yes, yes, yes.
It was collect. Do you want to know about it?
Yes, I want to hear the good stuff.
It's got a really good back. I sing it now, a version of it. Still, it was collected in 1905 in a place called King's Lynn in Norfolk by a British composer called Ray Vaughan Williams, who was one of the great folk song collectors who yeah, and it was sung to him by a sea captain, a fisherman, and it actually referenced a true case of a sea captain who was hung in London in the 18th century for having cruelly mistreated his cabin boy. And folk songs traditional folk songs are so amazing because there are versions of it with different tunes, and the same tune is used with different words. That's what happened. You know, folk is like that all over the place. But yeah, it's a real old English folk song, and something about it then appealed to me, and a few years later appeals to me still. Yeah.
Well, you and David did a nice job on that
I
one.
love his guitar on that. It's always like it's trying to go somewhere,
Yeah,
uh, and doesn't quite get there, and that gives it a sort of hang quality, which I love. Yeah,
yeah. I love a lot of those old sea shanties. Yes, like you say, yeah, those are wonderful tracks. Wonderful.
yeah.
Self-contained. Now that may be my favorite on the album. Self-contained.
There was a, a, a pretty well known experimental playwright in Britain. He's died recently, called Snoo Wilson. His real name was Andrew, but for some reason he was called Snoo, and he wrote some completely bonkers plays. Um, and he wrote a show called A Girl Mad as Pigs. Hold on, and the reason I'm pausing, or it might have been his one called Ella Day Fess's Magical Machine or something. Anyway, and I wrote the music for that, and so Self-Contained, he wrote the words, which are rather fine actually. The words, and then the music goes with it, and then one of the other songs from that musical was this thing, with you each day I try to let you wait till May, again Snooze words, and it suddenly occurred to me that if the girls they could actually sing that on top of Self-Contained, and it was at the time we thought it was a very very sophisticated. Yes, I like that song very much, and again David's guitar on that is just beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, um, and yeah, it was great. And what was I going to say about? And of course, with you each day is the original, because I did the accompaniment for the musical on a Hammond organ. We hired a Hammond organ. Oh, I love Hammond organs.
Oh, I do too. Yes, yes.
I went to New York it's a few years ago, and just went and found a sort of old blues bar, and I walked in, and I don't know who they were, but it was a real old blues band, and there was, you know, the electric guitars were so good, and there was this Hammond organ, and it was kind of yeah.
Right.
uh, the yeah, so, and of course what I did with you each day quite consciously is sort of stole the original version stole the sort of keyboard riff from Daydream Believer, you know. Deek
Yeah.
deek 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 deek.
Yes, yes. I hear that. Yes, yes.
It's one because that's one of the greatest ever pop songs of all time, I think.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Most definitely. Well, one more track, Melanie. I like that one as well.
Do you know? I think I sort of had this very unrealistic and sort of romantic view of girls. And I like the idea of kind of sad heroines. I think it's because um, um, I got very into the sort of the King Arthur stories and things like that, and there were always maidens waiting to be rescued, because obviously they couldn't do it themselves. Because that all comes out of the courtly love tradition of the 15th century and so on. The stories and the French courtly love stories, and they not that courtly, yeah, and you know, they played into the cliche of the defenseless woman always being saved by, you know,
Yes,
dying of love or being saved by the valiant knight, and
yes.
a bit, you know. But
Right.
that's the one which I've tried to reproduce that one, but I can't. I know that I tuned uh, the D string to an E, and I think I must have brought the G string down to an E to get this kind of lovely twangy thing, but I can't quite work out what anyway. Oh, that's a thought.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
you might try to resurrect. Yeah,
Yes. Well, it's just why not?
yeah.
You know.
Right, right. That's what I say. Right, right. Yeah. Well, was there thought of recording a follow-up, or was there any label interest at
Then I
all?
left university, and I went to live in London and I did some odd jobs. I didn't get a very good degree and stuff, but I did lots of acting and things and singing, and then I tried to study law, um, because my father was a lawyer and he was rather disappointed in me. So I thought, well, but that didn't really work, um, because because a friend came to visit me, uh, and drugs were involved, and that kind of took me down that path. And I started then really playing seriously, and I used to run an evening with two or three guys in the Troubadour, in the, you know, the famous Troubadour, not the Los Angeles Troubadour, but the one in 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 West London, and I had Linda Thompson there and people like that. Ridiculously, and to this day I will regret this, because around the same time there was a rather young unknown American there called Paul Simon who used to play there, but he played on different nights and I never heard him.
Yeah.
And I still think some of those very early songs the rock and Kathy's song and stuff like that, I still think they're some of the great folk songs of all time.
Yes.
And but I never, anyway, so I played there and I played it around, and then I did a stint busking. I went around busking,
Oh, you did
uh,
do some busking. Okay. Okay.
yeah, and
Okay.
my father my father got to hear of this, and he said,
Yeah.
"What if one of my friends saw you?" He said, because it was very much anyway. And I took tapes and I ran a little folk club attached to the place where I was training to be a teacher,
Yeah.
and I took tapes round to
Hmm.
people.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh, so there was interest, but not
Yeah.
enough. And I didn't I didn't know then, and I have never known how to sort of push myself, to really sort of do that
Promote your.
stuff.
Yeah.
So I didn't get
Yeah.
bookings and things.
Right.
Um,
I wanted to mention real quick before we moved on about Paul Simon. being in the UK, I recently talked to Keith Potker, who was the Seekers. He
Oh
was in
yes,
the,
yes, yes, yes,
yes, yes,
yes.
yes, the folk band,
Yeah, yeah.
and he met Paul at that time that he was there.
They were great times, and I somehow managed to miss. That was the time when Jackson C. Frank was around.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, making one of the supreme,
Oh, what,
once only albums of all time.
right.
You
What a
know,
songwriter and singer,
oh
yes.
my word, he was
Yeah.
absolutely perfect. And then I mean, he had, you will know this better than I, but I mean, he ended. It just sounds so tragic. I mean, the last sighting I read about him, he was down and out and very large and kind of living on the streets in New York somewhere. And
Yeah.
what the hell? I mean, the guy had such huge. I mean, that is one of the greatest folk albums of all time.
Yes, yes.
The Jackson C. Frank.
There are so many, I wished I would have started doing this, like decades ago. Some of these guys that have passed on that I would have loved to have visited with. But unfortunately, so now that's why I have to do it now before it's
Before it's too late.
too
Yes,
late.
I,
Get you
I,
guys before it's too
I think
late.
I'm not in my first flush of youth, and I keep thinking, how long am I going to be able to go on doing this? Because I haven't stopped. I mean, I do concerts. I do, I play the viola as well in a couple of symphony orchestras, and I love that. I play guitar lots of times. I do a lot of things with a me and a string sextet behind me, and that's really good fun. Or with this Folkhouse gang, that's great fun. If I'm lucky, I'm going to go on forever. But I don't think it's been done, and I'm very unlikely to be the first one who can.
You could be the very first.
The first 100-year-old folk singer.
Right. Wouldn't that be something if you're still like 120 and you're like,
Yes, that's
"Oh,
right.
wow, it may be me. That would
Yeah,
be
I very
something.
much doubt that there are no signs that I could defy any law of
No.
gravity like that.
I don't want to live to be, no, I don't even want to live to be 100. I really don't. Well,
I think on a serious note, I mean, I think
uh,
all of that would depend on, always depends on what your life's actually like.
yeah, yeah, very
And
true.
I think in the end,
Mhm.
my younger brother, who I love almost more dearly than life itself, he got multiple sclerosis, and the end of his life was almost unendurable, and that
Yeah,
in the end, chronological age is not really important. It's whether I've recently started writing some memoirs just because it's fun. Because in my other life, well, and also the musical life, I've spent years just traveling the bloody world. That's what I do, and you get good. There's some good stories that come out of that. And so, but I've always said that if I ever start living all my life in the past, that'll be when things are, you know, that's when you've hit the one way ticket sort of thing.
yes. Well, when did you begin teaching English? Is that like ESL,
Yeah,
English as
that's
a second
exactly, yeah,
language?
very much so. There was a
Okay,
British version.
okay.
I got precisely. Oh, and I don't know whether you've come across it. One before I started singing properly in London, I lived in this little bed sit, and I got a phone call. This little phone, coin-operated phone in the corridor. There was got a phone call, and that was Nick Drake, who I hadn't seen for months. He said, "Can I come round?" And I, oh, yeah, sure. And he came round, and he said, "I've got this LP. Would you like to listen to it?" And I had this one of those old-fashioned, wonderful mono record players, but with terrific big speakers. And he produced this LP, which had a blank label, just in a sort of cardboard cover. And he said, "Listen to this," and he plonked it on. and the first track was "Time Has Told Me," and it was a test pressing of Five Leaves Left, and I just remember kind of going,
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and to this day I will never forget that extraordinary mixture of kind of awe and jealousy because he was doing what I wanted to be doing.
Yeah. To
Uh,
to be able to hear that first, like you said, a
just
test
it
press.
was it was just you just went Jesus, and then I suddenly saw that people like Richard Thompson were playing. What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so but after a couple of years of this, I was getting a bit fed up of being very poor, um, and funnily enough, another guitarist whose name was Alan. And the only other thing I remember about him, I can vaguely remember it. The only other thing I remember about him is he had a Sunburst Gibson acoustic. That's a nerdy sort of thing. Anyway, sorry about that. But
That's
he
all right.
said that there was this place in Shaftesbury Avenue in London, and London at the time was a cool place. He said you could go there and you could pay £25, which I managed to rustle together, and you could do a 4-week course and then get a job anywhere in the world. And I thought, well, okay. Um,
Yeah. Sign me up. Yeah. Yeah.
so I went there, hair down to here and a long beard, and up until that moment, mostly stoned most of the time, which I almost instantly stopped once the course started because it's not very compatible. Um, and around the second week into that, uh, I suddenly sort of thought, oh my God, this is actually rather good. Oh, I like this. And it kind of liked me. And I also met uh, this beautiful um, woman who'd been born and grown up in Mexico.
Oh,
And
okay.
we got together, and I was married to her for many, many years, and we had our kids were both born in Mexico and stuff. So that's how I got into that and went to Mexico.
Oh,
And it was while I was there, a bit later, that I started writing books in my field, which is, I've been a full-time writer since about 1983. And that has taken me, my publishers took me around just about around the world for years and years and years. There was one year I did sort of 45 different air trips and stuff like that. Teachers' conferences, workshops, and things like
yeah.
that. This year, no, last year now, 25, actually went to Ukraine and it's a sort of gesture
Oh,
of support and did a show there. I've just been invited again. Uh, so I did that, but the music never stopped. And
yeah.
myself and this guy Steve, being a great friend of mine, devised this show, this Touchable Dreams show, which is poetry and music, and we took that to many different countries, and that had a bit of guitar in it, and I I I I I, I perform the poems in that, and then sing a couple of songs, and then and I incorporate um, uh, singing into some of my presentations. I mean, for a good pedagogic reason, by the way. And then I do this show called Shakespeare and Other Folk. I've set some Shakespeare
Yes.
songs to music.
Yes, that's
Um,
right. Yes. I was going to ask you, we'll go into that a little bit.
yeah,
Uh,
and so basically it still keeps going. And then I co-run a folk club near here, and then in lockdown I'd been uh, I'd been in Brazil for 2.5 months with my girlfriend, who is now my wife. My I've been in a place called Recife in the northeast of Brazil, and I hadn't played any music for 2.5 months. I was getting not orchestra, not guitar, nothing. No. I mean, I had a guitar with me, and I'd sit in the flat if she wasn't there playing the guitar. And So I came back raring to go, and I was due to play somewhere um, on about March the 16th or something, and my friend said he sent me a message saying no, and I just sat there. I just remember sitting on my own in my kitchen, breakfast, a cup of coffee. I sat there, I was so depressed. So I wrote back to him and said, I messaged back. I said, I use Zoom with my publishers. I've used Zoom quite a lot and stuff like that. Shall we try a? He said, well, you can give it a try. We'll come along. And so I started up something, called it Lockdown Folk. We ran for 2.5 years. At our height, we did 2 meetings a week. We had singers from the States, so California, from New York, from Portland, and from around the States. We had someone from fabulous singer. It was Switzerland, Italy, all up and down the United Kingdom. People most of them I'd never met before, and it was, and Zoom is a bit of a nightmare. You can't sing together.
Right.
But we managed to attract a group of really good musicians, some of whom are professional or semi-pro, and it was absolutely stunning. And it would go on until about 1:32 in the morning sometimes. And one of the guys was in LA. He's called Jerry. Come to me in a bit. Absolutely stunning guitarist, and he played in some minor, sort of mildly famous sort of bands in LA in his time. He always played Johnny. I wrote a song about him. Johnny played guitar. He played a red Telecaster, and was absolutely superb, and quite clearly off his face. And it turned out he had a massive alcohol dependency problem. And they had a big event which was also online, and I sent them the video I made of a song I'd written about him. It's not that good, but it was the best I could. Anyway, so we did Lockdown Folk, and then finally, when the pandemic was all over, well, I mean, when we organised Lockdown Folk Live, and people came into here to Cambridge. They came from everywhere. They came from Southern California. One fantastic singer came from Anchorage, which is not close, And
No.
and and we did five years of live Lockdown Folks, and that was one of the best things I've done. That fabulous.
Yeah. Well, speaking of lockdown, you recorded Windhover during that period. I guess in a way, and I've talked to different musicians about that, it's kind of a silver lining of COVID, being shut in like that. What else can you do, right? Or if you have your own studio, you can record. So in a way, it's kind of a mixed blessing.
Lockdown Folk was one of the most joyful things I've been involved in. But I was on my own. Could hardly ever leave the house except to do some basic, shopping. I was on my own. I have one advantage over quite a lot of other people, which is, I was on my own. I didn't have 4 young children. I lived comfortable. I mean, I don't live in luxury, but I lived in a comfortable place, not in a sort of 25th floor apartment, and because I've been a writer for so many years, being on my own, sitting on my own somewhere, writing away wasn't an unusual thing to do. It had its downsides. I mean, luckily, touch wood, nobody that I knew or loved was taken away by COVID. Um, I didn't get to see uh, my my third granddaughter for the first 5 months of her life, and that was sad. Um, uh, Much sadder for my daughter and her husband because their daughter was born, their first baby was born right then. And what you do with your babies, especially the mums, they will take their baby to their friends who already have babies, and they all get together, and they, a sort of sisterhood and motherhood. Of course, none of that. They were just shut. Anyway, that's now the end of that. But yes, so the first thing was lockdown folk. And the second thing was, I don't have a recording studio, but I've got perfectly decent. I use Logic Pro, um, uh, and um, I've got a decent microphone and a reasonable sound thing here, and I'm pretty adept with using Logic Pro, and I can play a few instruments and stuff. So yeah, Windhover, it was all me. And what was the next? Because I did a song, Still Here, which is
Yes, yes.
um, she stands there in her summer clothes, lightning breeze that ripples through her hair, and curly on the wing, and that was distinctly a sort of homage, if you like, to Jackson C. Frank, because
Oh,
he's got a season song called Milk and Honey.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I thought, and I've used fairly similar chords on this one, and it was just you know, and I'm very proud of that. And then I think it's also got the one about it's got one about that um, granddaughter who I didn't see for a bit and stuff like that. Um, and where's the come on guys, what the hell's going on here? Oh, wait a minute. Uh,
I've got the song listing. I've got the song listing right here.
yeah, I have now too.
Oh, okay,
No,
great.
and I rather like there's a version of Amelia, the traditional song
Okay,
Amelia, on
okay.
that, which I'm rather proud of.
Yeah.
And I've got myself this thing here. You've seen one of these,
Yes, yes,
this hand harmonium, and
yes.
and they're a bugger to deal with. Um, but um, uh, but the sound they make is so
I
extraordinary.
I love the sound. You're right.
Uh,
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I love that
and
sound.
the other one, I very much like uh, Bray Hill, which is about this,
Oh,
this
okay.
place in Cornwall. Um,
Oh, it's an actual location. Okay,
yeah,
great. Great. Yeah.
and rather bizarrely, Bray in Cornish, in the Cornish language, actually means hill. So essentially,
Yes, yes.
you got someone called Hill Hill.
Hill, hill.
But that was things that was fun doing that. And so you're recording the guitar track and the vocal track, and then you put another, um, and then you see if you can get another guitar part to go with that. If you can be your own David Costa, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And then you think, oh, it needs a bass, and so I've got a nice well, I got the double bass, but I've also got a jazz master hanging on the wall,
Oh, okay, okay.
and then I thought, oh, maybe it could take a viola solo, and then you've got a few shaky things, and it's just really good. I absolutely love doing that album. Some of it is not that great. Um, uh, um, but there's that old traditional song. It's got the Jacobites by name, lend an ear, lend
Yeah,
an ear.
I thought that looked familiar. Yes,
and
yes,
and
yes, yes.
um, and I love that because it's just very straightforward double bass, dum dum dum, and then you can build up a whole thing on top of that. It's really wonderful, and so yeah, it was really. Other musicians you've talked to, as I think you said, will have told you the same kind of thing. It just it just gave you permission to entirely, go into your own head.
Yeah, be
And
self-indulgent. Yeah.
totally, very much so.
Yeah.
And as I say, there are about three tracks on that. that I think stand up. Um, um, oh, and then there's a thing called the Legend of Port Quinn, which it was all written on this written for this hand harmonium, and it goes on for bloody hours. But it's a genuine sort of it's my song, but it's a kind of folky story which isn't actually true. So that was
Well, wow. Well, around the same time, you recorded a concert with the AdHoc Strings.
yeah.
Are they still together?
Yes, well, I'll tell you how that works.
Mhm.
We'd been invited to play in this festival, but although lockdown had sort of finished,
Mhm.
we were still, you still have to sit 3 meters apart, that kind of thing. There were still
Yeah.
restrictions, and so there was no chance we'd go and do it. So the first violinist, my best friend Steve, his wife was a vicar, a priest, and so she fixed it for us to use that church.
Oh, okay.
And those, so the sextet, the original sextet, um, there were a couple of people there who weren't in the original sextet, um, uh, because people change. But crucially, the guy playing the double bass um, is the guy who wrote all the string arrangements.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And he's a mutual friend of mine and Steve's, and so we thought what we'll do is we'll film it all. We use 2 or 3 cameras, I think, and decent sound equipment, um, and um, and then we'll sort of put it together as if it was a through live performance.
Okay.
Um, but it all went a bit wrong, particularly when I did a couple of the songs on the harmonium, because at that moment the heavens opened and the noise coming up from the roof, it's just absolutely colossal. Um, uh, and
Yeah.
there's a song on that, another traditional song, uh, just me and Josh on the cello, and then Steve joins in
Um,
on
yeah. Are, are
it's
you?
called I drew my ship into the harbour. I
Oh,
drew it close to where my true love lay. I drew it close to my true love's window to listen to what my true love would say. I love that. I just love that. So I don't know. Oh, I love it. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, are you familiar with the Medici String Quartet?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, are you okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I thought you might. I visited with Ivo Vanderwerf, uh, Jan Vanderwerf, he's teaching at Rice in university,
Oh,
but he
wow.
teaches like viola. That's what he played in that group. But I thought that was interesting that he's relocated here and teaching that and just
Wow.
talk. Yeah, so that I thought you
How
might
did
have.
you come across him then?
Uh, he was also in. Actually, somebody recommended me to
Okay.
him. That's what that was, and I said yes. I like to talk to musicians in all genres, and that have performed in that kind of music as well, classical. Uh, if I have an interest in it. But it
By
was
the
very
way,
interesting.
by the way, uh, oh yes, it's all right. I couldn't see the little red recording light, and I thought, oh
Oh,
my God,
okay.
maybe he hasn't recorded. And then I've just seen it, so sorry. Yeah.
Oh, oh yeah. The first time, well, one of the first times I was recording, I didn't have my battery charging because with video it uses quite a lot of battery, and I got to almost the very end of the interview, and it just went black. It just went out because I wasn't charging it. I salvaged that. I was able to salvage, but it was like, okay, I learned my lesson. So
Yeah,
now
you learn pretty damn quick, don't you?
yeah, I keep it plugged in now. So it's
My publishers once sent a photographer round to take sort of some headshots for some publicity or something, and he happened to be the father of one of my kids' school friends, so we knew him pretty well. and he was a proper professional photographer. Um, and we spent hours, and he said, "No, we'll have you here. No, we'll have you there. No, 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 click, 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 click." And he rang me out the next day, and this is pre-digital. He rang me out the next day. He said, "I don't know how to tell you this, but I didn't have any film in the camera or something. I can't remember what it was." And no, I didn't. No, and it was digital. He said I didn't have a card in the camera.
Oh, he didn't have the card in there.
Um,
Oh no.
and you just go,
Oh no, that's
yeah,
something. I'm always afraid of doing something like that. Like, oh my God, all that time. Oh, I wasted and oh
yes,
yeah.
exactly.
I wanted to hear about the We Carry On,
Okay.
your latest. How did you and the collective Folkhouse come into the same orbit?
Well, so one of them, an amazing Scottish classic player. That's the Scottish harp, and she sings very well, and she's a very good flautist as well. Um, she was one of the lockdown folk discoveries. I
Okay,
didn't used to
okay,
know her. And then there's a couple who live near here called Brian and Penny, and they sing as Corsten and Walker together. Well, he doesn't sing, but he's just the best mandolin player I've ever come across. But he's also a very fine guitarist and lots of other things. Incidentally, they now have a folk band six-piece called Tin Giants, and they played most of the British folk festivals last year. They're terrific. Anyway, we all sort of because of lockdown folk, we all knew each other, and then in these live events, we'd all sort of play with each other or play. We'd hear each other play, and I can't remember how it all happened. Oh, I know how it happened. And then a local folk club here um, said, "Well, why don't you come? When your live thing is finished, come along and do a little evening at the folk club." And so, I chose Brian and Penny and this woman Pauline, um, and it was lovely. And we didn't play together. Well, we did a couple of times, but mostly what you do is you sit there and so one person sings, another person sings, and you sort of choose what you're going to sing based on what's just been sung, that kind of thing. And we all get on terribly well, and we're much of a muchness, and we all respect each other's music a lot. And so when it came to making We Carry On, I had these tracks, and I said, would you come along and play on these? And they don't play on all of them, but there are one or two of them that Brian plays on quite a lot, the mandolin player, and both of the women sing sort of backup and stuff like that. And then there's harp and things, and it just works. It's just there are one or two tracks on that I'm prouder of than almost anything. They just seem to click, because and that was all recorded in the studio. I got a good friend of mine who's a much better at mixing than me. He spent some time mixing it up and making it sound good. Yeah, and since then we've actually done some performances as we call ourselves the Folkhouse Collective, and so what we do of an evening is we'll do our two 45-minute sets, and you literally Penny and Brian do something, and then maybe Pauline does, then maybe I do something, or maybe me and Brian do something, or maybe Penny and Pauline, or whatever, and then sometimes we do all together a few songs, and I take along that bloody great thing behind me, because and it's only recently that I've started playing it. But somebody said when I played it, they said, "Oh my word!" He said, "I'm so pleased you bought that. It fills up an empty acoustic space."
Yeah, yeah, yes,
It is still officially my daughter's double
right,
bass. I mean, I paid for
right,
it obviously,
right.
but um, uh, but I've started playing it more and more, and I've spent money on it because it was in a bit of a mess. I've had it a new set of strings on a thing like that is about £350. What's that? 400 and something
Yeah,
dollars,
something like that. Wow. Yeah,
and it needed a new bridge and various different things, and it's a joy. It just it's this great rich boom, it's just and Folkhouse is a joy. It, it's low stress. I mean, no performing is low stress, but it's low stress, um, respectful, gorgeous music. Uh, it's not like doing a sort of a band gig like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's we did it the other day at a folk club near London. People just love it because you don't have to listen to the band all the time. You listen to this one, or maybe two of these ones, or so there's constant variety and chopping and changing. I love that. It's really nice.
Yes, yes. The focus is not just on one individual musician at a time. Yes, yes.
You know when
All
you
the
go
time.
to when you go to a long gig of a solo artist,
Hmm. Right.
particularly old blokes with guitars,
Yes.
um, which I have nothing against.
Yeah.
um, um, uh, they have to be very good to carry you for two sets,
Yes. Yes.
because
Yeah.
in the end, I would tell you
Mhm.
that, oh no, my songs are all different, but the fact it's the same sound world all the time.
Right. Exactly. That's right. Yeah. Yes, it is.
Whereas when you got the four of you to chop and change,
Yes.
it doesn't happen.
Yes. Exactly.
So we carry on is like that, and then the final track, which gives the CD its name. Um, uh, a good friend of mine, a fabulous Swiss folk singer called Barbara Koenig, she added the first harmony, and then we had harmonies from Penny and Pauline, and then we had uh, uh, Brian on the mandolin, and then Pauline added a bit of flute, and that stands up. It's and we've done it live a few times, and the chorus is sung quite a few times, and it's very easy to pick up, and this is absolutely true. I'm not much of a monarchist. I'm a Republican. Can I just point out with a small r? Um,
Okay. Yeah.
um,
Lowercase.
for avoidance of doubt.
Right. Not the capital.
um, um, but when the Queen died here, uh, uh, I mean, I was sorry she died, because I'm sorry when anybody dies, and yeah, but I was 5 when she was crowned Queen, so
Yeah.
the whole of my
Yeah.
life,
Yes.
and
Yes.
like the monarchy or loathe the monarchy, it's
Yeah.
been a kind of constant,
Yes.
uh, a constant of my life,
Yes. Right.
and the closest I've seen that actually has been in Cuba with some people who talk about Fidel with that kind of reverence. Is not, it's
Reverence.
too
Yeah.
strong a word,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
as if he were. It's a bit like saying, the Statue of Liberty, or the
Yeah.
White House. They've been
Right. Right.
um, there forever, sort of
Ever.
thing.
Yes. Right.
Um, um, and the day after she died, I was absolutely blown away. I repeat, I'm pretty critical of the whole institution, by the way. I would be much happier if this was a republic as well, but that's neither here nor there. Um, but there was something about the way they transitioned uh, from her to him. The show must go on,
Yes. Yes.
even though this momentous thing had happened.
Yes.
And I was sitting in here, just where I'm sitting now, in the studio, and I had my this guitar in my hand, and I there was something about them. They just carried on,
Right.
and other songwriters will have said to you in your Zooms,
Yeah.
there are some songs you have to work like mad for, and some songs they literally kind of fall out the sky. It took
Right.
about 5.5 minutes.
Wow, that fast. Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
and then it turned out that it wasn't about the Queen at all. It was about uh, uh, um, um, uh, it was just one of those songs about the wheel of time. There's um, and we die, but the show carries on, sort of thing. And then because my brother died not too soon after that, it's now become a sort of homage to him.
Yeah.
And we sang it the other night in this folk club, oh,
Wow. Yeah.
um,
Well, there's something has to be said about the longevity. Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, 96 and 99, you
it's
know,
unbelievable.
to live that long. So, I know they had the best medical care and things like that, but they had to have some good genes, there
Yeah,
as well.
totally. And but because they were so woven into the fabric
Yeah.
of the whole thing of what it is to be British,
Yeah.
um, and all you had to see was, have to see is, American presidents who are the least monarchist people in the world. Good God damn it,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
happened there in the War of Independence? I mean, that's, um, but there was something of, every time she went to Washington, she would, and what did Trump want to do the other day? What was his little prize to make him stop beating the British over the head? Well, it was a visit with the king.
Yeah.
It's,
Exactly. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Right.
you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's very interesting. I have music on while I'm working. Funnily
Yeah.
enough, I
Yeah.
usually have classical music on for
Yeah.
all sorts of reasons. Um, and But some people just can't work if there's background music.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know, yeah, music is used quite a lot in education in different places, but I
Sure.
know some teachers who wouldn't dream of it.
Yeah.
And this is the same with students.
Yeah. Yeah.
The idea always is if you use music in the lesson, it will motivate students or bring them along or
Right.
spark their creativity or something like that.
Right.
But for some students, that would be the very worst thing you could possibly do.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Isn't that something? I consider music the highest art form. And it's used as therapy. In fact, I have an interview coming up later with a guy who he's recorded, but he also went into music therapy. So yeah, yeah. So
I've seen film of successful music therapy sessions with deeply
yeah,
disturbed and troubled people, and it's
right,
extraordinary. It's absolutely
right.
extraordinary.
It soothes the savage beast.
Yeah, totally. And
Yeah,
and if you can get someone, even someone who's got learning difficulties and things like that, but they can focus, they can click into rhythm, they get. It's just, I mean, it's a basic sort of human. It's a thing, you know,
right, right.
and we probably people probably made music before they made speech and so
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, the rhythm of life. I mean,
And
music. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
the joy, if you're part of something,
Hmm.
uh, like when I play with the other three in the Folkhouse, or playing with the sextet, and if between you create this thing, it's one of the great. I mean, I love doing it on my own as well when it all comes together, but doing it together is just one of the great things ever.
Yeah.
One of
Yes. What? Yes. Well said. Well said. And echoed with throughout history and so many artists and musicians. I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
Yeah. That same sentiment.
And
Yes.
I listened to that interview with Tom Rush, and I just thought,
Yeah.
he said, well, and then I heard this woman Joni, and she does it, and we do everything together,
Yeah.
and I thought,
Yeah.
I'm going to bite your hand off. I just,
Yeah, right. Yeah, now he's one I was surprised that was willing to do it. I had to do a little convincing with him.
yeah.
Yeah, but he was one that, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised.
My wife, because she's not a musician,
Mhm.
um, but for one birthday she bought me a ticket for the proms. Now I don't know. Do you know about the proms?
What's
Uh,
that?
there's a series of things called the Promenade concerts every summer. It's the greatest
Oh,
classical music festival in the world almost. So over a period of 3 months, they have different orchestras every night playing just about everything and anything.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you got the LA Phil or the New York Philharmonic or the Bratislava something or the Czech Philharmonic, and they all come along and they play their concerts, and they also have some ancient music, but they also have now started bringing in folk music and jazz music and stuff
Oh,
like that.
all right. All
Um,
right.
and she bought me a concert dedicated to the music of Nick Drake,
Oh,
and 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 I said to her I was very grateful because I was, um, and but secretly I was a bit nervous because there's it has such a special feel, and if you chuck an orchestra behind it and do that kind of thing, do you? But
yes.
she was great. She bought us tickets in one of those little boxes, and she bought a bottle of wine and some glasses. This is and I was in tears about halfway through the first number
Right.
because whoever did the arrangements made
Yeah.
such a good job of it.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, and the first song they sang is my absolutely number one Nick Drake song. I mean, it's tragic. It's a thing called "Fly." Please give me a
Oh,
second, Grace.
I know the song. Yeah. I know the,
I
yes.
just think
Yeah.
it's one of the I do a version of it now myself, and if only I could, I would. I
Right
can't.
now.
You know. So basically, this all came about because you'd come across some of my music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I still do a lot of music. As I said, I play in orchestras. I've written sort of folk oratorio for symphony orchestra and kids soloists and stuff
Oh
like that,
yeah. Yeah.
which we performed in Ely Cathedral. Huge
Right.
audience. It was a big
Right.
deal. Um, and we performed it the other day somewhere else, and hopefully some more performances coming up. Uh, I play folk gigs, but I also go to some sessions and things like that, which are really good fun. Uh, with musicians, the ones where I really like the musicians, and we carry on. Is that the last CD I make? I sort of doubt it really um, because it's not a choice really. And the really bizarre thing is that my professional writing, um, uh, there's a whole if you there's a whole
Oh yeah.
all of these here
Shelf
are my
full of
books and stuff like that, and I've just started, and I'd sort of stopped doing that because hey, you know, but I've started again, um, and I reflect. I'll be 79 this year, which is pretty old, but I reflect that the two of Richard Strauss's greatest works he wrote when he was 82. So
yes. Yes. Yes.
one of the most profound and one of the most sort of wedding cakey light, you know. So music. I repeat, it's not really a choice. Uh, I wouldn't even say it was a calling. I would just say
Yeah.
it's a sort of thing.
Yes.
It's just there,
It's
and somehow or other, um, I started getting involved at school, uh, and you know,
it's
well, sorry, but we carry on.
that's right. It's who you are. It's just it's a part of your essence.
Yeah, totally,
It's your makeup. Yeah. So
totally.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
and by the way, I completely fit into that. What I'm sure the people closest to you would call a sort of obsessive record collecting habit and stuff like that. Because that's there's 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 nothing about it except it just has to be.
right. Right. Yes. I've never met a musician that's not also a fan.
Yeah, completely.
So
There was a famous. I remember listening to a famous poet, a British poet called Wendy Cope. She may not be known over there, but very funny. And she recounts how someone came up to her at a an event and asked whether she'd look at their poetry, and which she dreads, but she chatted them, and she said to this guy, she said, what kind of poets do you read, and what do you like? And he said, oh, I don't read anybody else, I just listen to myself. And she said at that point, she didn't exactly turn her back,
Yeah.
but she basically said, well, what's the point?
Right.
None of us, uh, whether you write or you sing or you play or you, none of us are unique.
They're unique.
We're all part
We
of
don't.
something. Um,
We don't live in a vacuum, an individual vacuum like that.
no, absolutely not. And the song, I wrote a song called Bray Hill, which I mentioned before, which I love. And for some reason, the Rutger Hauer speech from Blade Runner gets in there. So
Okay.
it says, and then I think maybe life's just a game, um, and all these memories will be lost like tears in rain. But the last line of that song is um, uh, but now I think no, life's not a game, because we're all part of something like tears in rain, and that's
Yeah.
that turning Rutger Hauer around on his head a bit.
Right. Yeah.
That is one of the greatest stories in film, isn't it? The fact that he wrote that the
Yes.
night before the shoot. Just
Yes.
stunning.
Yes. Right. How prophetic.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
there you are.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, I want to thank you again, Jeremy. It's been very enjoyable. And I will
Well,
get you.
it's been seriously pleasurable for me, and I didn't really expect that. I mean, so I've enjoyed it a lot.
Okay. Well, I think
I
that's
don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, I didn't
no.
have much expectation at all, but
Okay.
it's been
Okay.
enjoyable.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good to hear. I will send you a copy of this. I'll edit out the politics,
Yeah.
and
Yes,
for
please.
sure, for sure, and probably this time next week. Um,
Cool.
and then I do it on one day, and then the following week I'll do the editing and post it,
Sure, sure.
and
Absolutely.
you'll send you a copy, and then it'll also be on my channel.
Fantastic.
All right.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
been very, very nice to meet you, by the way.
yes, nice to meet you too. Yeah, and stay in touch and keep
Yeah,
me
we'll do.
up to date and posted. On any goings on or anything that you'd like to send my way. At all.
Certainly will.
All right. All right
Good.
then. Bye bye for now, and all
Bye.
the
See you
best.
later. The fingers are waving.
Okay, I got it. They are. All the best to you.
See you later.
All
Bye.
right.
Bye.
Bye.